we can start with the radio-related news. Okay, microphones, can somebody please start the microphone? Okay, coming. Microphone's coming.
Дуже дякую за можливість.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Mr. President, you have spoken with partners, and of course the key question about this summit is the reparations loan for Ukraine, and you have said that it's crucial. What feedback have you received from partners, and how optimistic are you that the decision on the reparation loan will be made? Otherwise, you said Ukraine will face problems. How big of a problem will Ukraine face? Will the front line collapse, or will there be a large budget gap? Thank you. Today, I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of leaders which format the aid is possible in. We understand that the majority of leaders support reparation loan, and there are leaders who support other instruments. I can't speak on behalf of leaders what will be the result of today or any other day. I think we're united in one thing. It's that we can't allow ourselves to leave Ukraine without answer these days regarding financial opportunities for the next year, because it is indeed a threat. Which threat? 45-50 billion of deficit, for sure. The deficit can be even larger. We do not know for sure how the events will unfold the next year. We speak about doing everything to end the war in the near future. We're doing everything. All our efforts are aimed at diplomatic way to end this war, but we also hear
різні меседжі, я б сказав, що це не меседжі, а звуки
not even messages, but some
від
sounds
російської сторони про те, що вони
from the
поки що говорять
Russians
більше про війну,
they are
ніж про
now
мир.
talking more about war
І
than
тому
peace,
Україна повинна бути
which is why
сильною.
Ukraine must be strong.
Це не просто
It's not just
45-50
45,
мільярдів
50
такий
billion.
дефіцит. Це не тільки про
Such
фронт.
deficit is not
Це в
about the
принципі
front
про
line. It's overall
здатність
about
боротися
the
Україні.
capacity
Це
of
дуже важливо,
Ukraine
це
to
дуже сильні
fight.
і
It's
високі
very
ризики
important,
для України.
high risks
І
for
тому
Ukraine.
я радий, що
So
сьогодні
I'm glad
в мене
that
була можливість
today I
спілкуватись,
had
була
an
можливість передати
opportunity to
всі
talk
важливі меседжі української сторони.
and to
Ну і окремо це
transmit
одна
important
частина
messages from
нашої розмови, а
Ukrainian
інша
side, and
частина
that was
це
one part of our
яка у нас
conversation. The
зараз
other
іде
part of the conversation was
дипломатична дискусія з нашими
about
американськими партнерами.
diplomatic discussion with
Тому будемо
our
вірити, що
American
буде
partners.
сьогодні рішення позитивне.
Hope that the decision will
Next
be
question,
positive
please.
today.
You're active. I can see you. Yes, please. Okay, next question, TVP World, please.
Mr. President, thank you so much. My first question is, do you agree with Prime Minister Tusk this morning, who said the only options for Europe are money today or blood tomorrow? And you've just met with Prime Minister Biden de Wever. What is your level of sympathy with Belgium's concerns about legal or financial retaliation if they agree this loan for your country? Thank you.
Я думаю, що прем'єр-міністр передусім говорить про безпеку
that,
Європи. Він правий.
Mr.
Що
Prime
якщо
Minister
сьогодні
is
не
talking
підтримувати
about
Україну,
the security of
залишити
Europe in
її
the first place. And
наодинці,
if you don't support Ukraine
ми і
now,
так самі
live
воюємо,
it
саме наші
alone. And
військові
we are,
воюють,
by the way, we're
і до
fighting
них велика
alone.
повага.
Our warriors
І
are
від
fighting.
лідерів також, від
We have great
всіх.
respect for
І
them, and
тут,
leaders have
безумовно,
great respect
Європа
for them.
сьогодні
Everybody has great
підтримує
respect for them, and absolutely Europe now supports
зброєю,
us
підтримує
with
фінансово.
weapons and supports us financially.
Прем'єр-міністр
And
думає про те, що якщо не підтримувати
Mr. Prime
Україну,
Minister thinks
великі
that
шанси,
if we
що
don't
Україна
support
може не
Ukraine, there
витримати,
are
і тоді
great
Європа буде
chances
платити
that
вже не грошима, а кров'ю.
Ukraine
Я абсолютно погоджуюсь, тому що
will not
сигнали
put the
знов-таки
sand,
з
and
Росії
Europe will have to
точно
pay
не
with
про
blood.
мир
I
з
agree,
Європою,
because
йдуть саме такі. Я не
Russia
хочу
now
нікого
transmits signals
залякувати, але
not
це
about
слова
peace with
прем'єра
Europe. I
вони
don't want to
зрозуміли.
threaten
Так,
anybody,
я думаю, що ми більш
intimidate
детально завтра
anybody.
поговоримо з Дональдом.
It all
Що
speaks for itself.
стосується
I think that tomorrow
прем'єр-міністра
we'll have more
Бельгії,
detailed conversation with the
я
Donald.
думаю, що, по-перше, ми хорошо з ним
About
поговорили.
Prime Minister of
Ми
Belgium.
розуміємо
Well,
одне
first and foremost, we've had a
Я
good
розумію про
conversation.
риски,
We
про
understand
які
each
він
other.
говорить.
I understand
Але
risks
ми в
he's
війні, на
talking
мій
about,
погляд,
but
ми
we are at war,
знаходимося
and
в
I
більших
think that we
ризиках.
face
Важливо, що
bigger risks.
те, що сигнал
It's
йде
important
від нього,
that
що ми
he is
безумовно в
transmitting
будь-якому
signals
випадку
that
повинні вирішити
anyway
питання
we need to
сьогодні або
solve
ці
this
дні
issue
так,
today or
щоб Україна не
in the
залишилась
coming days,
без
so
фінансової
that
підтримки.
Ukraine is not left
Це
without
позитивний
financial
сигнал.
support. This is his positive signal.
BBC next, please.
Jacques, Mr. President, just to follow up on my colleague's question, can you spell out for us what it would mean if you reach next spring and this money is not signed off? What does that mean for Ukraine and its ability to not just fight, but function as a country? Thank you.
Якщо навесні
If
Україна Якщо навесні Україна не отримує
by
відповідний
spring Ukraine
транш,
does not receive the
який у
corresponding
разі
tranche that
миру Україна
case of
буде
peace,
використовувати на
Ukraine
відновлення
will use for recovery
нашої держави, а у
of
разі
our state.
продовження війни
Or,
Україна буде
in case of
використовувати
the
ці
continuation
гроші
of the war,
на
Ukraine will use this
наступні
money for
пріоритети.
the following
Передусім
priorities.
виробництво дронів.
First and foremost, drone production.
Якщо не надійде
If
цей транш, у
this
України
tranche does not
буде
come,
зменшено в рази виробництво дронів.
Ukraine will
Для порівняння,
have
якщо сьогодні ми,
significantly decreased
що
drone
стосується дешевих дронів, які ми використовуємо на
For
полі бою,
comparison,
у
now,
нас
speaking about cheap drones in
приблизно
the battlefield, now
competitive
we are somewhat
Так.
competitive.
number of
We have
such
a
drones. З
competitive number
Росією
of drones with
у нас
the
буде
Russians.
набагато менше. І
We
якщо
will have
далекобійні ми сьогодні
much
використовуємо
smaller
наші
number,
можливості,
but long-range
і
capabilities
так само
that we
вони
use now.
працюють, але з нашого
They are
боку, як
working
санкційні пакети
on
по
our
енергетиці
end as
наших
sanctions
європейських і
packages
американських партнерів, ми зі свого боку
of
робимо все, щоб
our
зменшити
European and American
енергоресурс Росії.
partners. We do
Всього
everything on
цього
our end
просто
to
не буде.
decrease Russian
Росії відповідь.
energy capabilities. All of that will disappear. That's it.
Politico, please. Politico, here.
Thank you. Thank you. Hans von Burkhardt from Politico in Berlin. I have a follow-up question on the talks that also took place in Berlin. There were still some difficult questions left open. You mentioned on the territorial questions. Do you think you've advanced any on this further? Do you think the ball is yet decisively in Russia's court, or do you still have open things that you have to discuss with the US side? And also one point of this US plan is the EU accession of Ukraine. There's actually the speeding up. There was some talk even from 2027 potentially. What do you think is actually realistically from your side? What are you aiming for? Which date now? And also with all these reforms that obviously need to be taken. Thank you.
Дякую. Вступ в
Thank
Європейський
you.
Союз,
EU accession
вступ до Європейського Союзу може бути прискорений. Це
can be
залежить від
expedited.
наших
This
кроків і
depends
від
on our
кроків
steps,
наших
and
лідерів,
also on
якщо
steps
ці
of our
кроки не
leaders,
блокуються політично.
if these
Тобто,
steps
якщо
are
це
not
прив'язано
being
до
blocked
законодавства,
politically. So
змін,
if this is
реформ, тощо,
connected
я
with
розумію таку
legislation,
логіку.
changes,
Так,
reforms,
якщо це
I
блокується
understand this logic.
політично,
If
я
it's
таку логіку
blocked,
не
if it's being
розумію,
blocked
але
politically, I
розумію,
don't
хто це
understand
робить.
this
Так,
logic,
ну,
but
це
I
відкрита
understand
інформація.
who's
Тому,
doing
в
that.
принципі,
It's
для
an
нас
open
Європейський
secret.
Союз, членство в
For now,
Європейському
for
Союзі,
us,
для нас це гарантії
EU
безпеки.
membership is one of
Частина
the
тих гарантій
security guarantees.
безпеки,
It's
про
part of the
які
security
Україна не
guarantees,
тільки заявляє, домовляється,
which
розраховує.
is saying,
Це,
negotiating, and on
якщо
which we
це
are
гарантії
counting.
безпеки від Сполучених Штатів Америки, ми розуміємо деталі, на які ми хочемо розраховувати, і ми зараз говоримо з ними, десь боремось за ті чи інші деталі, то від Європейського Союзу це Coalition of the Willing, там де є країни не тільки ЄС, там країни Європи плюс, і від Європейського Союзу це гарантоване членство в Європейському Союзі. Для нас це дійсно гарантії безпеки, не тільки економічні, і політичні, і геополітичні. політичні точки. Тому для нас дата Європейського Союзу, членство в Європейському Союзі дуже важливо. І я зараз не говорю про дату, а про рік тощо, але тому що це безумовно будуть вирішувати лідери Європейського Союзу. Але для нас дуже важливо, щоб це не вирішували інші, не вирішувала Росія і інші ті, хто хочуть або блокують нас. Навіть деякі члени Європейського Союзу, ви знаєте, блокують через політичні причини, а не через те, що не впроваджена та чи інша реформа в Україні. Я за справедливість. Далі, що стосується сенситивних питань, про які ми говорили зі Сполученими Штатами Америки, так, Донбас, питання, яке не вирішено, у нас різні погляди, атомна станція, яка окупована Російською Федерацією, не працює, зруйнована, але повинна працювати, давати електрику, наша станція, наші права, питання не вирішено, питання грошей. Ну, я свій погляд повністю сьогодні сказав колегам, лідерам. Я вважаю, що reparation loan, вони повинні бути позитивно вирішені.
This issue must be solved positively because this issue is not only about financial support for Ukraine, but in the first quarter of the next year, but it's also an issue of different nature. We don't want this instrument to stay in the Russian hands. We really don't want that, but we believe that they will do everything to block it.
Next question, freedom, please. Here in the middle.
Mr. President, good afternoon, Freedom Channel. Of course, my question is to you, Mr. President, but I would really want our colleagues from other media from other countries to hear it. We have a great presence of powerful media here. We in Ukraine have an online website that shows which missiles and drones fly and when where. Now, as we speak, 10 drones are targeting the city of Dnipro, and a missile is targeting Zaporizhia. That's a missile that is destroying houses. The city of Odessa, a city with 1 million population, was without power for 3 days in a row. Ukrainian railway are switching for diesel locomotives because there is no power generation. And now my question, Mr. President, Russia has allocated 160 billion for the war next year. Do our partners understand, following today's conversation, you say that they perceive this issue politically, they don't want to wage war. Do they understand the radical mood in Russia and this spit in the face of all the world from Putin for peace proposals, for the desire to end this war? Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for you remind the world which conditions Ukraine is fighting in, because it's difficult to call it life. Ukraine is fighting for life. Speaking about air defense, now we're talking about air defense, certain missiles. I don't want to spell out which systems have deficits, but there are certain systems that have no missiles for them. I have discussed that with partners today, that we can have long discussions, but every day something hits something flies over somewhere, and these things must be shut down. So either our partners give us licenses or missiles, or they help us with money, and then we procure it on our own. There is no other way. Does Europe understand that? I think it does, but when Russians allocate such record budget for the war against us, not anybody else, of course, all of that industry will have to be fed in the future on a permanent basis. You can't just allocate money for the next year. What will they do next with these bloated military companies? They must be fed constantly, and they will have to support their war effort permanently because these are huge revenues. So why am I mentioning this? Because yes, there is Ukraine, but when it all gets bloated, it will have to be directed somewhere. And now the question is not about where, but the main thing is that it will be directed against something. so that somebody will also have hits. I don't want to intimidate anybody, but everybody must be ready, that's it. And the last thing, does Europe understand it? Now, a great catalyst of that is, do our partners understand that or not? We'll see.
No? Please. Here, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask you, I'm Leonora Klint from the Danish Børsen. When do you need the EU leaders to take a final decision on financing for Ukraine? Would they be able to postpone the decision into, let's say, January or later on? We know that you need the money in the second quarter of 2026, but when do you need the actual decision to be made? Thank you.
Our partners are informed that the decision can be taken until the end of the year, okay?
Euronews next, please.
Euronews.
Till the end of this year.
Till the end of this year, of course. It's important.
Partners. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sasha Vakulina from Euronews. Mr. President, the question is a follow-up also on the Berlin meeting. I would like to know how would you assess the progress in the diplomatic side of trying to find a settlement to end Russia's war in Ukraine, and if you also plan anytime soon the meeting with Donald Trump, and whether you think that the commitments that were voiced by the European leaders could actually replace Article 5 and NATO accession. Thank you.
There is progress in our dialogue with the American side. Why? Because in our dialogue with America we had a couple of formats, a couple of documents, and I believe that in our dialogue we have progress. We do have progress. The question is that this is a part of the negotiating process. Then the United States, they take the amendments of certain points, and then they have discussions with the Russian side. So as of now, I don't have the feedback about our most recent progress, because I can't say what we have there and what we don't. But in the coming days, we'll definitely be able to say it, and I think that the frequency of our meetings is also part of the progress. For now, I perceive it this way. Maybe there is more optimism here than realism, but these are the realities. We live under the conditions where we fight for ourselves, and we believe that we will succeed in everything. Speaking about security guarantees and the presence of the European leaders, we do not believe that Europe must substitute the United States of America. And this is the same attitude we have to the security guarantees from the United States of America, Article 5-like, and then there will be no need for European support. No, these are different things, and no matter the signals that Russia transmit, we understand that they want to exclude the presence of the Europeans. This must not be allowed to happen, because we understand that if, in case of recurrence of Russian aggression, we don't talk that. We don't say that in the event of recurrence of Russian aggression, Europe will have to fight against Russia. No, we don't say that, but European presence will decrease the probability of Russia attacking again. The number of countries, the number of flags, national flags, the number of countries in the coalition of the willing, in any format, no matter the number of the countries, it will bear high risks to start the aggression against Ukraine again. So for us, European presence is important. Now, when we're talking about backstop of the United States of America, we're talking about intelligence sharing, we're talking about strong security guarantees from the United States of America we're counting on. As of now, we cannot reveal all the details, but when we're talking about Article 5 of the NATO treaty, we understand that this is a response to aggression, and we will be covering those details with our partners. And what we understand is legally binding article, it must be legally binding article from the United States of America that must be supported by the Congress of the United States.
States, Wall Street Journal, please.
Thanks. Nice segue. Lawrence Norman, Wall Street Journal. 2 questions, please, Mr. President. First of all, you called the security guarantees that the US had offered a first draft in Berlin. The Americans are saying they will send it to the Senate to be ratified and make it legally binding. So what is it precisely that you still need to hear from the Americans on the backstop? What does it lack to turn it from a first draft into something you're happy with or you're satisfied with? Secondly, on the loan, how important is it for you to get the promise of the loan now for your negotiations with the US? We know that you're under pressure on territory in the Donbass and Donetsk from the Trump administration. Do you need that leverage in those talks to show them that you have the funding to keep fighting?
Безумовно, ви праві, що всі
Undoubtedly, you're right that all these questions are intertwined. Of course, you're right that all these questions are intertwined. Can you hear me now? Yes, all of these questions are interconnected. Of course, money is needed so that Russia and anybody else in the world does not use these Russian assets as a leverage against us. We want these assets so that it is not a part of the negotiating process, and we want this part to support us. We are more confident at the negotiating table if we have this instrument. And answering the question, how will you withstand for one more year, then you will immediately have the answer, and there will be no such questions. But for now, these questions are in the air. We want to remove everything that's unnecessary and focus on real things that can stop Putin, really, and where we really have difficulties in negotiations. So if there is no question of finances, then there will be questions about Donbass. And these things are intertwined for our partners. East and security guarantees. I believe that the end of the war in general, not only land, but end of the war in general, is connected with security guarantees, because without security guarantees, it doesn't mean that it will be an end, and there will be certain pause, and then Russia, if it is ready to come with aggression again, it will come. So we must have guarantees that will speak to everybody, Ukrainian people, investments, American people, to everybody, to people who live in Ukraine, to people who want to come back to Ukraine, to people who want to invest in Ukraine, to Europeans who want to see Ukraine as part of the EU. These are important things for everybody. Which security guarantees will Ukraine have post-war? Will post-war Ukraine have? And here, yes, nobody believes in Budapest Memorandum or Minsk Agreement, Minsk 238. Yes, we would want it to be voted. But is it sufficient, you're saying? I believe it's important. That is a detail that Ukraine never had. Is it enough? No. So there we have a strong army, and when we are talking with the US side, our military, and I'm grateful for them, our military is raising the question about the quality and numbers of Ukrainian army. And it's absolutely just. This is what one can see, and what at the very least Ukrainian people believes in it. Strong Ukrainian army. And strong Ukrainian army is good contract, training, well-equipped, and weapons. Weapons in the first place. And there are questions I can't receive an answer to. Not that I can't, but somebody's unwilling, because we haven't reached that point. The question of security guarantees is posed for everybody. When you don't have NATO, or you have NATO-like, you have guarantee that is NATO-like. Somebody's saying maybe it's better. I don't know. My aim is not to evaluate it. I have one aim, to get an answer for the question, what will the United States of America do if Russia comes with aggression again? What these security guarantees will do? How will it work out? What will all partners do? How, with what pressure, with what power they will stop Moscow? Specifically, I think we must get an answer to all that. Maybe it's an unpublic answer, but it must be fixed in certain documents.
Next question is Sky News. They're in the middle, and while we're waiting for the mic, please, if you can help me identify your media, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
President Zelenskyy, back to the Russian frozen assets. We know that the Belgian government is the biggest opposition to this, and we know their reasons why. What did you say to the Belgian Prime Minister when you met him to try and convince him? And do you think you have been able to persuade him to change his government's position?
I have said it all to the Belgian Prime Minister right before our press conference. I had a tete-a-tete conversation with him, and I had a meeting with him, and I think that he told me everything he wanted to tell me, and I did as well. Was it productive? We'll see. We just need a bit more time.
Answer, please. There.
Hi, thank you. Matteo Bagnoli, ANSA, the National Italian News Agency. Mr. President, at the last Council meeting, European leaders agreed to meet Ukrainian financial needs for the next 2 years. That was set. Today, the Commission proposal on the repair loans is on the table. The question is, do you want this proposal to be approved for its own sake and for the message that it sends to the Kremlin, or would any other formula be acceptable as long as Ukraine gets the money? And secondly, what message do you have for those leaders beyond Belgium who are still skeptical about approving this very proposal? Thank you.
There are a couple of countries that are skeptical because of some reasons. There are certain internal questions. Somebody has their internal policy. Somebody is against Ukraine. No matter what Ukraine wants, no matter what Ukraine does, somebody is against it. It's their political superstition. Let's put it that way. There are a couple of ways for Ukraine to get the financing. Basically, as of today, now Ukraine must close this problem and have the money. That's number one. About the prospects, the most right form is reparation loan, so that we all understand, so that Russia understands that it's guilty and that it will have to pay reparations.
Next question, Reuters, please.
Mr. President, Andrew Gray from Reuters. Many people interpreted your remarks at the weekend about NATO membership as Ukraine giving up on the aspiration of NATO membership. Is that correct? And if so, would you go as far as to advocate for changes to your constitution to remove that aspiration?
I don't know what the interpretation of my words was. Really, since the very first dialogue of the with the former US President Biden, I have been raising that issue about NATO. Why? Because we have it written in our constitution and the European track, and I have asked him this question sincerely: can Ukraine join NATO? Because we want that, and we understand that these are real security guarantees. This is what we had before the war. President Biden told me, no, you will not be in NATO. I have approached this issue time and again, and certain people in the White House smiled at me and had other reactions because of that, and they always said that I was tough. I don't know why. But in all honesty, I don't understand. If this or that state says that basically we are not against, but you will not be there. Well, I think that if somebody is saying that you will not be there, then we must name these people and then solve these questions. And in all honesty, I don't believe that we must change our constitution, the constitution of our state. Well, first and foremost, it's Ukrainian constitution, and let Ukrainian people decide what we shall do with our constitution, and not anybody else. Definitely not because of Russian claims. It's our constitution, and this is the course. We wanted to have such guarantees. We believe that we deserve them. The United States have their policy. They don't see us in NATO. For now. Everything in our lives is for now. Maybe the position will change in the future. Maybe somebody will come to realize that strong Ukrainian army strengthens NATO, and not vice versa. Politicians change. Somebody lives, somebody dies. And it's life. And we are fighting for the security guarantees. Today they are just as we're discussing them. My words cannot be interpreted in any other way. I just said that in the agreement that we have between us and whomever else, I can't say that I will not be in NATO because it's not me who decides this question. That was my signal to our partners. It's the responsibility solely of NATO member states, their desire to see us there or not see us there, their agreements with Russia, their non-agreements with Russia. It's something else. Our position remains unchanged. We deserve that. We would want to have such guarantees. And we also hear the position of our partners. As of now, it remains unchanged. And let them be responsible for these changes or not changes. For me, that's just. It's just as the issue of reparation loans. So that allegedly we shall decide that with the Russians later on. Why? Why should we talk about the funds that are in Europe with the Russians? With Russians or the Chinese or whomever else. The money is in Europe. Let us decide that with the Europeans. Couple more questions and then we must close it. URF and then NHK, please.
President Johannes Perterer, ORF, Austrian National Television. Almost exactly a year ago, I stood in this spot and you were over there, and I asked you the question how you felt about Donald Trump becoming the president of the United States again. So it's been almost a year, so I was wondering, what do you think about how your relationship to Donald Trump has evolved, and has anything surprised you about how it did?
You will ask me the same question each time when we will meet. Interesting. Next year, I will prepare for next time. No, look, it's not simple dialogue, really. I mean, we are in the war in the United States, you know, they are decision makers who can really stop Putin. And I count on this. But I really count on pressure from the United States. Now the United States more mediating, it's true, they're mediating between us. But I really wanted very much them more steps pressuring Russia, because I think that Putin doesn't want to stop this war, but he can if the United States will pressure more. And President Trump, he can, I think so, and God bless, he will be successful in this. Yes, but we will continue next year.
NHK, please, here.
Thank you, Satya from NHK, the public TV station of Japan. I have a question on reparation loans. Do you have hopes that the other G7 countries, especially Japan and maybe the U.S., who have Russian immobilized assets within their country, but are less enthusiastic in using them to finance Ukraine, to take a step forward now?
Of course, absolutely. We look at today's decision. It's the main decision because the vast majority of the money is located in Europe. But anyways, such a decision can influence relevant decisions. Maybe the amount will be smaller, but nonetheless, the world supports the transfer of Russian assets because of their aggression against Ukraine to give them to Ukraine. So maybe today's decision, if it is positive, and God bless it will be positive, it will influence other states as well.
First is VRT, right, Belgium, and then Suspilny from Ukraine. Okay.
Mr. President, Rob Herbert for VRT, Belgian television. Prime Minister De Wever and the government say that they want to fund Ukraine, but not by using the Russian assets, because it's contrary, according to them, to international law. A majority of the Belgian population has also big concerns about using these Russian assets. What would you say to them to address these concerns?
In my view, it's absolutely just before saying how difficult it will be for Ukraine and its people to endure without this money. Before doing that, I would look at this question from the point of view of morality and justice. And of course, Ukraine has the right for this money because Russia is destroying us, and to use these assets against their attacks is absolutely just. And most professionals, most pundits say that it's a clean decision and it's absolutely just. At the very least, the decision that is being considered today regarding the format of the future usage of these assets. So both values-based and legally, everything is right here. One can fear certain legal steps in courts from the Russian Federation, but it's not as scary as when Russia is at your borders, in all honesty. So while Ukraine is defending Europe, you must help Ukraine. Valeria Pashko, Public Broadcaster of Ukraine. Mr. President, about security guarantees, one more follow-up. Can you confirm that the American side is offering Ukraine Article 5-like security guarantees, and if these guarantees are being offered, they are connected with territorial concessions on our end? And if the Europeans are ready to provide security guarantees, Article 5-like security guarantees, then with which numbers, and have you had talks with them already? It's difficult to answer your question as of now, because I want to be sincere, and of course I understand where this or that security guarantees likelihood can move from our partners. Directly, my partners have not told me that, but I understand the mood, and I understand our actions, how we will act, even under such difficult circumstances. In my view, there must be partnership here. We can't speak about exchanges. I'm not about even land swaps here. It's about exchange of services. So that's what we have now. But we'll reach that point. We'll reach that point.
Thank you.